Good morning, everyone. This morning we are coming live from the Tax Speaker Business Entity Seminar in Ocean City, Maryland, where Bob Jennings is in the next room doing a great job in presenting to about 170 accountants. So again, he's doing an amazing job for us. And
As
so we
always.
truly appreciate his time that he's given us and the many years of partnership that we've had with Tax Speaker. Now, this morning, I am joined by two great individuals, Matt Lincoln, who has a practice located in Middleburg, Maryland, and Ellen Silverstein, who's sitting next to me here in Ocean City, who has a practice in Clarksburg, Maryland. Today, our show is going to be talking about podcasts and how they can help you in your practice. I have to admit, Ellen, I know you and Matt have been podcasters. I guess that's the word.
I guess so.
Podcasters for a long time. I'm a little late coming to the game, you know.
All right. We'll get
then
you caught up.
We'll get you caught up. But since then, you know, I've had a lovely lunch with Matt, and of course, you've shared numerous podcasts with me as well. And it is a convenient, and a really the multitude of topics that are available to you is amazing.
It's amazing.
I mean, it runs the gamut. It really does.
Yes,
and
it does.
and it's in most, and I think in all cases they're free.
I would think that they would be.
Yeah,
There
I
are
mean,
some subscriptions, but
yeah.
I think most of them are still free.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
and I did this little research last night, and as of March 2019, there was 750,000 different podcasts available. Can you imagine? And we better and
That's a lot of
30.
listening.
But and the thing is, and that's 30 million episodes. No, so 750,000 podcasts,
30 million.
30 million,
Wow.
and this is as of March. God only knows where it is. So that's 6 months ago.
Right.
So I mean, that is pretty outstanding.
Amazing. Amazing.
So I know some of our people some of our members are maybe don't even know what podcasts are and how they work. So what I'm going to be sharing with them is a couple YouTube videos in which Naval's going to be posting and how to use them with your Android phone or your iPhone. I mean, and it's really not difficult. The app is in most cases already there on your phones when you buy them. It's part of the normal the menu of
utility
items.
functions.
Yeah, the menu items.
Right.
So Naval will be sharing them. And so, and I'll tell you, it really, I watched them myself, and it's pretty interesting, you know, learning about, you know, about subscribing, about episodes. So you subscribe to the podcast, and then you can pick your episodes.
That's right.
And once you get it on your iPhone, when they post a new episode, it automatically sends you that message, which I thought was very interesting. So it's really, once you have it set up, it's pretty easy to, you know, manipulate. It really is. So, but I'll let you guys get into that a little bit. So I'm going to talk to you first, Ellen, about the ones that you're using and the ones you're enjoying and how you use them and how you feel they're affecting your life and your business.
So a lot of what we listen to, some are business related, some are more just general of general interest, I'll say. So the ones that we do for business are the School of Greatness, which is really great, and then the Entrepreneurs on Fire. There's also one by NPR called How I Built This.
Love that one.
Yeah, really good. So they're just really interesting. They give you some insights into some aspects of whatever you might be feeling or working through in your own business. So it can help you so you're not alone. You don't ever feel alone because other people are going through the same things that you are and either trying to build your business or understanding the pains of growth, you know, that kind of thing. So they are really, really helpful and so fascinating and just very somewhat entertaining in a lot of cases.
So when you're listening to them, you know, all of us have such a small window of time that we can relax and just, you know, do things for ourselves. So when do you find that you're listening to podcasts?
Mostly in the evening.
Mostly in the evening.
So, so I might be getting ready for bed. And I can be listening to some then, sometimes after I'm already in bed, and I'll put my earphones on and I'll listen to some. One for pleasure I like to listen to is called Revisionist History by Malcolm Gladwell.
Yeah.
It's about these really interesting points in time of history and revisits them to discuss their impact and how it might be seen today. And that those are really interesting. The one that hit me the hardest was the one about the Brown versus the Department of Education, which I've talked about before, and how that all took place when they integrated schools in the 60s. They did the students, but never thought about the adults, doing the teachers or other support And they never did those people. They just did the students. And it was just, wow, like mind blowing. Like,
Right.
why didn't you think to do teachers first?
Especially,
So,
and then
right.
I think we brought this up when we are one of our last meetings, because Howard County is going through that of changing a redistricting.
Right.
And
As is Montgomery County. Too,
right. And you were talking about, they're talking about the students, but what are they doing with the teachers?
Teachers, right.
Again, it's
No.
history repeating itself.
Right.
It's pretty amazing.
So, yeah, so that one's really interesting. But the other ones are really good. Sometimes when you're getting ready in the morning, you can turn them on. Or when you first get into work, or maybe taking a break mid-morning or mid-afternoon. Good times to actually plug those in or turn those on and actually listen to what the information might be, just to give yourself a little bit of a break, but to also inspire you and to give you some great ideas about maybe where to take your business or what to do with an issue or whatever it is that you're actually listening to.
Well,
So,
that's really great. Thank you for sharing those.
They're really good.
And so now, Matt, about a month ago, we had lunch, and I love the excitement that you had and you shared with me on the podcast. And I know what you were saying was that you were doing podcasts. Well, I mean, when the podcast you listen, you do it a lot in your travels in your truck. And it's amazing the technology that you're seeing now in the vehicles that we are purchasing, that we do have these different opportunities of listenings, and we don't have to just listen to the radio or CDs.
Right.
And I almost said 8 tracks, but I messed myself. Okay, so I didn't go that far. So you remember those days?
Yeah, sadly, yes, I do.
Okay, so Matt, please share with the audience what you're listening to and what how you listening to, and when you listen.
So a couple of things. Number one, driving is an easy one. People are used to listening to the radio in the car, but I feel like with the selection of podcasts that we have, we actually can target our interest more when we're in the car. So I do a lot while driving. I actually picked up one from Bob Jennings, of all people. He talked at a seminar a while ago about how he tries to go on a walk every afternoon. And I said, what? I think that's a good idea for my health. And that's also a chance to take a break from client work and maybe listen to something work related, but scratches a different itch. So I do that from time to time now. I'll take just a walk in the middle of the day, and I'll throw on some earphones and listen to a podcast while I'm on my walk. And also mowing the lawn around the house, like doing chores around the house, folding laundry, I find is a really great time to listen. I gotta say, I love Ellen's List of Podcasts, especially How I Built This, which I have not only listened to, but I recommend to my clients a lot who are starting businesses who fail to understand that they're not the first person to encounter these problems. And that podcast is very inspirational for hearing all the different ways that people have to manage processes and succeed and fail and all those type of things. And also Malcolm Gladwell, his podcast, which is fantastic, turned me on to his books as well, which were really great. And that happens with a lot of podcasts, that they will then connect you to the next dot down the way to continue your education. A couple of my favorite ones, one I actually mentioned at the Solo Conference a couple of years ago, was Hidden Brain. Hidden Brain is hosted by a guy named Shaker Vedantam, and he is just fantastic. He had a U 2.0 series. I think it was 3 or 4 episodes, which I think every professional should listen to, because it talks about, understanding how you work and how you're efficient and how your brain works. So that was a great podcast. One which is really helped me realize that podcasts could be, a lot about developing my business is Michael Kitces. The podcast is about financial planning, which is, to me, just one tangent off what we do in accounting and tax preparation. A lot of us do some aspect of financial planning in our businesses anyway. His podcasts are really, really great, which also leads you back to his blog, which is often a great resource on tax topics. I'm going to mention episode 7 for Michael Kitces. He talks to a guy named Matthew Jarvis about time blocking and how that fundamentally changed his practice, and how that increased the amount of time he was able to spend away from the office by being very focused on how he was using time in the office. It was interesting because he spends a lot of time talking about how he tries to spend 6 to 8 weeks out of the office a year. And in a unrelated podcast, which I'll talk about in a second, they said that the amount of time you can spend away from an office is often one of the best measures of the value of your business when you go to sell it. So people that are into buying and selling practices, that's a big metric for theirs. I'll mention just one more real quick. It's called Growing Your Firm. This is actually a podcast put out by a vendor called Jetpack Workflow, but they don't at all spend the time talking about their product. They just talk about people in the tax and accounting industry who have done things to improve their practices and their processes, and the change of focus about how they make their practice about being consistent and walking through, and less about the person that you're engaging with. It really has been a great podcast. They tend to be about 23 minutes. So lots of ideas out of that.
I was just going to ask, on average, how long are the podcasts that you're listening to? Then you just answered that. About 23 minutes was this one.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing I like about different podcasts is you can choose based on your amount of time. So there's a podcast called The Indicator by Planet Money, which is just a daily economics kind of update. It's about 8 minutes. So if I want to listen to something while I'm getting ready to head out for work and I don't want a big commitment, I just drop in an episode of that. And the kids' podcasts tend to be about an hour, so I might half of it on the way in and half of it on the way home from work. So depending on the amount of time you have, you can decide what's the best thing. I mean, I've got a list of I think maybe 15 podcasts that I listen to, and depending on my mood and what I'm thinking about at work, and I just line up whatever's most appropriate and I go. So
and now, Matt, I know when I was researching about podcasts and how do you find it, how did you find the podcast that interests you? Did you use the search tool in the podcast on your Android? Because I know you're an Android user. Or is this really, are you hearing from other professionals? How did you determine what to listen to, and how did you do your research?
Okay, so it's a little bit of both. For me, it actually started out with a series of audiobooks called Freakonomics, which I just thought were fantastic. And I just found out that they also put out a podcast. I'm like, well, if the books were great, let me listen to this show. It's just like more audiobook on demand. And then in the course of listening to that show, they would often talk about, like, say, Malcolm Gladwell. There was a couple episodes in Freakonomics where they talked about that. And I said, well, let me go check out his audiobooks. And then that led me down to his podcast. And then from there, at some point, I was like, wow, these podcasts are interesting. And I noticed I stumbled upon a good article like Kitsis. And then I saw, oh, well, he's got podcasts. Let me check out a couple of episodes about that. So it tends to be this bouncing back and forth. I have picked up podcasts. Once you realize they're out there, you start asking people about them. Like we're having this conversation now. And then I've had clients recommend both podcasts and audiobooks to me. To me, they kind of fall in a similar category. You just listen on demand for some, something you find very interesting. And so now it's almost a regular part of my interview with a lot of my business clients. I say, what are you listening to? Oh, wow, that's interesting. Have you listened to this? Because it's a chance for me to help them in their development of their business and their thought process, as well as me getting feedback from them about, a really good, books and podcasts as well. So I love that it's a conversation now.
It's interactive.
Yeah.
And actually conversing with the author particularly, but at least you can actually have more conversations, more in-depth conversations with your clients and or with other professions, colleagues. So
that works out. Yeah, very helpful. So I would say, this is a question for both of you. So on average, on any given day, how much time do you spend on podcasts?
I try to do it in a half hour maybe, or an hour, doing some sort of listening and or reading.
Right.
So a combination there. Yeah.
How about you, Matt?
Well, my drive to work is 40 minutes. So that's an hour and 20 every day. I'm listening to something. And then I tend to sneak in maybe a half an hour either in the morning or in the evening when I'm, wrapping up the day or getting ready for the day or, full on.
Right.
I might get an hour and a half or 2 hours, not every day of the week, but often.
And so on the podcast that you guys listen to, how do they usually put new content up weekly? Or is it, what is the norm? Because I saw that, like Michael Keats, is I said his name right?
No.
I know you shared with me, Matt, episode 19. So
right.
Is he doing like once a week? What is the norm? Is there a norm?
Right. I would say, like revisionist history runs from like a May to August. time
Oh,
frame. So he's only doing episodes one a week
okay.
through those months.
Oh, I
So it might
see.
be 12,
Okay.
right? And then they'll start a different season the following year.
Okay.
So he's got about four seasons, I think, under his belt at this point for that one. The other ones, I think, are doing them either weekly or every other week or something. They have now they have a lot of history, so they've been
Right.
on for a while. So
Mhm.
a whole bevy of, a library index of
Right.
available episodes, right, that we can listen to at another point. But yes, I'm not
Mhm.
sure how often they're doing it, but it is fairly often. I wouldn't say every day, but and maybe not every week, but they are fairly often.
How about you, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think there's a couple models. The shorter the podcast, the more frequent the drop is normally the case. So,
Mm,
like the indicator by Planet Money is 5 days a week. They put out an 8-minute show, but it's only 8 minutes, so they can do it.
oh,
It just tends to be weekly. And then Freakonomics has been interesting because it's been on for quite a long time at this point. They drop a show every week, but sometimes they drop old episodes and then they have an update at the end of the episode. So they say,
that's
"Hey,
interesting.
from our archive, we're going to replay it, and then we're going to tell you a little bit about what's happened in the year or the 2 years since the original episode." And those are actually oftentimes fun,
Yeah.
Wow, that is interesting. Now
It's
that's
great
a
as a follow-up. That's
that's
an
a
awesome
concept,
idea
yeah.
to do that. Yes, I would.
Yeah.
that is a really cool idea.
Yeah,
Oh wow.
it's good.
Well, I just want to thank you both for sharing with us this morning about the different podcasts that you listen to, and I really am excited to hear about what's
Mhm.
going on out there because as this things just evolve. Like I said, I'm late to the game, and I know you've been doing it for a while, and Matt
Yeah.
has too.
Right.
And so, but it's interesting to hear and the opportunities that on the different venues you can hear with the car
Right.
while you're like Matt said, while you're
Right.
running, while you're mowing the lawn. I mean,
Right.
these are all different things that you can do. You know, a lot of people do that as well as exercising, whatever the case may be. So
Great opportunities, lots of learning moments.
Yeah.
Just an unbelievable amount of learning out there to be had.
Ton of
Right.
stuff.
So at this point, I just want to announce that MSATP is now coming to the table. We are now coming to the podcast table on November 1. Oh, look at Matt clapping. Woo, yay. So it's going to be called the MSATP's Business Builder Podcast. It's a podcast for entrepreneurial accountants and tax preparers.
Right.
Okay, we're going to be producing various shows and with various topics that help you as a professional be successful in your business. And it was interesting. I was talking to Matt, I guess, what was it, Monday, Matt? And you said, how do we measure success? And Matt said, you can be successful not only by the value of your company and the money that you make, but also the knowledge you obtain. That makes you successful too. And I thought, I just wanted to share that, Matt, because I really thought that was very insightful. And
It is.
yeah, so it's not always the bottom line. It's it's the knowledge that you gain as well that makes you successful, not only for yourself, but for the clients that you represent.
Right.
Because that's
what you share, what you give
share,
out
yes.
is far more valuable than
So
what you're
I wanted to
actually
share
getting.
that, Matt, because I really I thought that was the most amazing insight. So in addition to that, the new podcast we're going to do is also on our new Facebook Live program. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about at least share one new podcast on each show a week. And so I thought that we're going to do a podcast segment. So I want to send this out to all our viewers and our listeners and say, if there's something you're doing, you might be a podcast, you might not be a novice like myself, you might be experienced. So please share with us. The more that we can share among our membership, the better we all are. So that makes it really
And
nice.
if there's some really interesting podcast that somebody else is listening to that we haven't even mentioned or touched on, they should be as well, because we could certainly benefit from whatever there might be getting.
Right. And it's not just in your business, but in your life too, because there's podcasts out there that make you a better person too.
Right.
So we would love to hear those as well. So just don't hesitate. Email me at sandy@msatp.org, and we will start doing that segment starting next week. And then our new podcast program will be starting on November 1st. So we'll be announcing that as well. So again, I want to thank you and Matt for joining us, Ellen and Matt for joining us this morning. And here we are in Ocean City. We have the sun shining, the beaches behind us, and so we are doing a great job. So next week we have a special guest, Stephanie Clapper, and Stephanie is from the Maryland Citizens Health Initiative. And next week she's going to be talking about that new question that you're going to see on the 502, the Maryland 502 form, and how that is going to affect the citizens of Maryland and how they're dealing with the health insurance issue. So that's going to be next week. And actually next week, our show is going to be on Thursday at 1:30 p.m. So I know we're jumping around a little bit, but we're trying to be accommodating to everyone.
Mhm.
So make sure that you tune in next week to hear from Stephanie. And so that's going to be another very interesting program.
That's going to be amazing. Yeah.
So,
Constantly changing tax laws and
yes, and
the forms are all changing
technology,
again.
law,
Technology,
legislation. I mean,
got to stay fluid. Right?
we are very fluid. That's why we do the show.
That's exactly why we do the show.
Well, I want to wish everyone a great day. Enjoy this beautiful sunshine. I guess it's up. The sun is shining up in Baltimore.
Everywhere, right?
Yes, it's shining everywhere. And have a great day, and we'll see you next week.